From Roanoke, Paul Woody came from Patrick Henry High to VCU, where he began his journalistic career for the Commonwealth Times, the school's student newspaper. His first professional job was with the Herald Leader in Lexington, Kentucky, but in 1979 he returned to his alma mater to be the editor for VCU magazine. It wasn't long before the Richmond News Leader tabbed him to cover high school sports, starting a career better than 4 decades long of writing all about Richmond sports, eventually writing for the Richmond Times-Dispatch when the two papers merged. In 1980, Paul became the primary beat writer covering what was then the Washington Redskins and was a fixture at every game, practice, and press conference. He's been honored 15 times by the Pro Football Writers of America, including 7 times as their top columnist. Paul has also earned 3 Associated Press Editor Awards, 10 honors from the Virginia Press Association, and 2 from the U.S. Basketball Writers Association. And everything he's written has come with his trademark wit and occasional cynicism. And when someone like Joe Gibbs calls you a friend, you have done something right. Please welcome to the stage and to the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame, Mr. Paul Woody.
First of all, I want to say to Dave Smith, you are not that bad. You are, in fact, very, very good. When the thing about Dave was that you knew you could trust him, and also I think he's going to drive me to the ophthalmologist after this because I'm going to be blind by that light. If you needed an answer and you called Dave Smith, you would get an answer. And that's what you want when you're on my end of the phone. It can be no, it can be yes, but you don't want to have an answer. You don't want to go without an answer and have to sit around and wait to find what's going on. So thank you, Dave. Thank you for all the help you gave to all the media over the years. Let's give Dave a hand, I think. Now, I'd like to take care of a few housekeeping items before I get into the bulk of my speech. As Lane said earlier, this is being sent out around the world via the internet. And I'm pretty sure it's going to an apartment in Bangkok, which is the home of Chris Woody and his wife, Molly Silver. They are there because Molly is a Foreign Service officer, and she's serving her country in Bangkok for at least 2 years. So please welcome Chris and Molly to the show. Chris Long, I want to thank you for the information you gave me about that hotel being abandoned. I've been staying there for years and just leaving money on a counter under a rock. And I wondered why it was so hard to get room service. And it was really good to stay in the summer because it's fairly cool. A little chilly in the winter. So I'm just going to stop staying there. So thank you for that information. And Dennis Bickmeyer and Mr. Votolkas, I'm just wondering, I have our 2 older sons are here. I have 2 strapping grandsons here. So if you have any more of those big checks, we would be happy to take them off your hands, and we've got the manpower to get them out of the building. So just let us know about that. And to Marty Miller, I'm not going to have to wait a day or a month, a week, or even a minute to know how much this means. This is great. And I hope I don't screw the rest of this up. Past couple of days, people have been telling me, oh, I bet you got a story about this, and I bet you got a story about that. So I was asked by someone to tell you this story. I hope you'll enjoy it. Early in our marriage, my wife and I moved to Lexington, Kentucky. She went to the Library Science School at the University of Kentucky. I went to work for the Lexington Herald and / Lexington Herald Leader. Lexington, Kentucky, as you might know, that's bluegrass country, that's horse country, that's thoroughbred country. Horses are very important out there, and they're treated pretty well. They like to tell this story in Lexington about this horse that one day walked into a bar and walked over to the bartender and said, "Man, it has been a long week. Buddy, I need a brewski." And he put a $20 bill on the counter. And the bartender swept that $20 bill off the counter very quickly, went over to the cash register and said to himself, "What does a horse know about money?" So he put the money, got change out of the cash register, gave himself a generous tip, went back over to the horse, put the beer, and put $2 in front of the horse. Horse looked at the $2 and didn't say anything. But the bartender, being a bartender, engaged in conversation with the horse. And he said, "You know, we don't get a lot of horses in here." And the horse said, "Yeah, at $18 a beer, I'm not surprised." Now, I had a lot of jokes in this speech, and that's the only one that made the cut. And in case you're wondering why that joke made the cut, it's because when I was reading this speech at home, my wife really liked that joke. I've been married a long time, and I know the importance of my wife liking a joke. I would like to tell you that I am deeply, sincerely, overwhelmingly, humbly honored to be here tonight. And I'm here because in early September of 1979, my friend Mike Harris, who I'd worked with at the Commonwealth Times and who was working at the Richmond News Leader, called and said, "Hey, we've got an opening here in the sports department. I thought you might like to know." Thought I might like to know, I said. I think I had my clips, my resume, and my references on the desk of Jennings Cully before the end of business day. Cully hired me December 3rd, 11 days before our first son was born on December 14th. 2 more sons followed, although not on December 14th, 1979. That would have been quite a day. Cully was the type of sports editor that you wanted to work for. Once he figured out that you knew how to do your job, he let you do your job. I'm looking over here because these are the only people I can see. And once he figured out you knew how to do your job, he let you do your job. And I was fortunate throughout my career to have sports editors, Jack Berniger, Howard Owen, Mike Harris, Steve Trotsky, Mike Savettis, Michael Phillips, who had that same philosophy. I'm also here not just because of those excellent editors, but I'm here also on the shoulders of numerous colleagues at the News Leader and Times-Dispatch. Tim Perrell, Vic Dorr Jr., and Arthur Utley could do anything at a newspaper. From writing sparkling stories to editing copy to designing pages to running the department. John O'Connor, who's been writing about the Sports Hall of Fame coming to Richmond and Henrico this week. Henrico, Mr. Fotolkas, in case you're looking for that check, Henrico. John O'Connor is a walking textbook on how to cover a beat or 2 or 3 beats, as he always seems to be doing. Earlier tonight, we saw Jerry Lindquist come out as a member of the Hall of Fame, and I want to tell you just a brief story about Jerry. He was a guy who never mailed stories in. Late in his career, he was covering a VMI football game, and VMI, I believe, lost the game in part because a player scored a touchdown, and to cross the goal line, he somersaulted into the end zone. In college football, that's a penalty. So VMI, instead of kicking off from the 40 or 35 or wherever they kick off from, who knows? I've been out of the business for a long time. Kicks off, the other team comes down, scores a winning touchdown or the winning field goal, they won. So Jerry went down, he'd done his interviews, and he went back upstairs, and he thought, you know, I should have talked to that kid who somersaulted over the goal line. Now, he didn't have to do that because He could have just written around it. He could have just let that go. But he went back down and he got an interview. He interviewed the kid. And the next Monday, he came into the office, and I was going to write a column on that because I have to say, I think it's a little ridiculous when you tell kids, go out and enjoy the game. It's all for fun. You know, that's important. Having fun is important. And then when they do something that's fun, you penalize them. So I was going to write a column, and I talked to Jerry about it, and he gave me some good insight. He gave me some good quotes, and I called the other team's coach and I asked him if it bothered him that this had happened, and he said, would he have been bothered if it wasn't a penalty? He said, no, it wouldn't have mattered to me. You played the game and we would have won or we would have lost. Yeah. I also like to thank David Teal, also a member of the Hall of Fame, now a sports columnist at the Times-Dispatch and formerly from the Newport News, for sharing his enormous knowledge of college athletics with me when I switched from covering just the Redskins and writing 2 columns a week to being the full-time columnist. His help was invaluable. Skip Wood and John Packett were Times-Dispatch sports writers. They died much too soon. They offered constant friendship and advice. They were excellent journalists, even better husbands, fathers, and in JP's case, grandfathers. There are people who envy me for the 40 years I spent covering Washington and the NFL as a beat writer and a columnist. But instead of envying me for that, they should envy me for the friendships. They should envy me for the friendships. I've got to enunciate better. That I made. Jim Dusabella, a Hall of Fame member from the Virginian Pilot, became one of my closest confidants. John Keim from the Fairfax Journal started covering the Redskins for the Fairfax Journal and now covers the Commanders for ESPN.com. Earlier today, when I was reading this to my wife, I said he covers the Commodores, and she got a pretty good laugh out of that, and we both agreed that that's a better nickname than Commanders. John Keim is a first-rate reporter, but he earns an even higher rating as a friend and a person. David Elfin, Rick Snyder, and Dan Daly from the Washington Times, Paul Atner from the Washington Post and the Sporting News, and Liz Clark from the Washington Post will be friends for life. They, along with many others, made me a better writer and a reporter. The sports writers I worked with in Richmond were talented, dedicated, ambitious, and tireless. We wanted to be where the biggest stories were, and our editors made it possible for us to travel the region, state, country, and world. I also want to thank my parents, and I'm very sorry that they're not here tonight, even though my mother would be a nervous wreck. My parents grew up during the Depression, and that affected their lives for decades. My father would be proud and happy to see me here tonight. He works his full-time job and year-round part-time jobs to support us so my brother and I could choose the careers we wanted instead of having to do as he did, get the best job available when he finished his 18-month business course to support his mother and other family members. I've always thought the career I have is the career he would have liked to have had. I was a middling high school athlete, good enough to make the team, not bad in practice, but anxious, lacking confidence when I had the chance to play in real games. I was also a teenage boy, which means I was, in large part, a lunkhead and almost completely oblivious to any efforts that basketball and track coaches made to boost my confidence. I was mindful of that when I got the job at the News Leader, and I told myself, hey, lunkhead, how about this time you do everything you can to reach your potential? How about you do your absolute best and see what happens? My wife, the lovely Mrs. Woody, is she still out there? There she is. Lovely Mrs. Woody. Wasn't and isn't afraid of anything. She's a strong, confident, independent woman. She doesn't need me to mansplain anything to her. She's a librarian, damn it, and what a library doesn't know isn't worth knowing. In December of 1979, the only thing between me and the career I wanted was point thumbs itself. No, I wasn't supposed to read that out loud. Was me. I decided, I didn't build in a lot of time for laughter in this, but I appreciate the response. I decided to do the work. Never forget that the routine questions can lead to good and great stories. Write the hell out of those stories when I found them and see where that took me. And it brought me here. Who would have thought it? I'm constantly amazed at the most important things in my life. My marriage, 3 accomplished sons. They are the notorious Woody brothers, and they are great. 3 wonderfully, equally accomplished daughters-in-law, 6 fantastic grandchildren, and a career that never felt as if it was work, fell into place with almost no muss and very little fuss. And I just want to thank everybody, because I think I've gotten it all.